Man, Speedy's gonna be so impressed when I tell him I've been practicing.
Oh, hey Steve. How's it going? I just saw you called. What are you Steve, what are you doing?
Wait, what do you mean? Isn't this what you did to practice for World Championships?
No, Steve. I'm not sure exactly why you thought that, but that's not how I prepared for Worlds.
Now that you mention it, that does actually make more sense. Do you want to just do some practice battles then?
I thought you'd never ask. Let's do it.
G'day, battlers, and today we're going to be going through my run through the Silph Arena All-Star Invitationals event as a member of the Squirtle Squad, as you may be able to tell from the sunglasses. But yeah, today we are going to be going through my battles through the entire invitational event, which we did pretty good. We did pretty good. If you weren't already aware, the All-Star Invitational event was basically a massive event with a bunch of content creators, top battlers, just notable people from the community, all together in one single team tournament for a whole lot of fun, whole lot of events, whole lot of streams, and it was just a lot of fun. But if you do want to learn more about the team format that is actually coming to the Silph Arena in February, you can click that link up there. I've got a whole video on the Silph Arena Factions and the Invitational if you want a bit more background info. You can watch that. This video will be linked at the end of that, so you can kind of watch that first and then come back to here. But if you do want to skip to a certain section in this video, the progress bar will have all the timestamps in there. So if you want to skip straight to the battles right now, you can go ahead and do that. But let's meet the team now, meet the Squirtle Squad. We've got our Master, Ultra, and Great League specialists, as well as our 4 field specialists, myself included, that played in the Floating City meta, which is a brand new meta made specifically for this tournament. It may appear in future factions tournaments, but we may have to just wait and see on that front. But we had Rocha Babyface 1 as our Master League specialist, massive pillar of the Latin America PvP community, super excited to have him. We have YuseiFurou, who I've still not asked how to pronounce his name, the #1 battler from New Zealand in the Ultra League Specialist slot. We have for the battles, you know her, you love her, in the Great League Specialist role. Then we have Speedy's Chief to the World Champion, and someone who I'm so proud to call my friend, as well as Meron P32, the APAC Continental Champion. So we already have 2 of the 4 Continental Champions. This team is so stacked. And you know, then we've got me, hello. Then we have Burnobus, the #15 player in the entire world, #6 in the United States, I believe. US is just stacked, by the way. But yeah, super excited to be on a team with all of these fantastic people. Seriously, like, I was so stoked to be on this team. Would not trade it for the world. But with that said, let's get into the battles. Now in the qualifying round, the Squirtle Squad is up against the Dancing Pineapples, and I was put up against fellow Aussie content creator FishOnAHeater. Absolute miracle that this happened, but you can see our teams on the left and right. You can see that his Obstagoon doesn't really have much play up against my team, and similarly my Ferrothorn doesn't have much play outside of the Swampert, so I'm kind of not going to bring that in. Now at this point in time, our 2 teams were actually neck and neck. They were 3-3. Whoever won this match went on to the semi-finals. There was a lot of pressure on this battle, so let's see how we did with it. Yeah, let's just see. So we go in with a Vigoroth in the lead, and we actually see a Drifloon lead. This is so terrible for us. We swap into Stunfisk as quick as we can to try and get as much energy as possible, and they actually bring in that Ferrothorn. So Ferrothorn really going to be pretty rough for our Stunfisk here. We're going to be throwing as many Mud Bombs as we can, trying to add up as much damage as possible onto that Ferrothorn. It was kind of good that we got a fair bit of energy stacked up before he swapped out, but it does mean that Drifloon has energy, and in practice I was really finding that Drifloon with energy was causing me a lot of problems. So Stunfisk could just go for the Mud Bomb, but unfortunately he does get the Power Whip off first. We're going to let it come through though, because hey, we're not going to win this matchup anyway. We survive and we get the Mud Bomb off. Now we actually decide to hit all of the bubbles here. I think that was a mistake, because this is going to weaken down that Ferrothorn. If we did not do that, Vigoroth would have been able to come in, farm up even more energy off of that Ferrothorn, as opposed to now, which only has like 2 or 3 counters. And then Drifloon is going to come into a fairly healthy Vigoroth, and still going to be able to farm up a lot of energy. So this Power Whip comes through, because we do want Vigoroth to be weak, but yeah, really didn't leave much room for that Ferrothorn to do much harm to us. So down goes the Ferrothorn, in comes back that Drifloon, and decides to go straight for the Icy Wind, which I thought was a bit interesting, but I guess like that is the only way that Drifloon's actually doing damage to Vigoroth. But we instant swap out of there into Mantine, knowing that this is kind of our shot here. We're going to go straight for the Bubble Beam, knowing that he's got 2 shields. He's probably going to shield this. Like, please shield this fish. That's not a fish. That's not a shield fish. That's not a shield. So absolutely massive call on Fish's end. Knew that I needed to land the bubble beam bait, but unfortunately it was too smart for it. Lands the Shadow Ball as well, and now going straight for the Ice Beam. But he gets the CMP, gets his charge move off first, and it is that Icy Wind, which I do shield, because at this point I kind of have to, because I'm kind of hoping that he's got a Swampert in the back. if there's a Swampert in the back, then vaNNiii is actually going to be able to handle it. So we kind of want vaNNiii to be as healthy as possible. So going to go up for another Bubble Beam here, actually going for the Ice Beam. Why would we go for Bubble Beam? Going for the Ice Beam to try and get that last shield off of vaNNiii. Again, have to shield at this point. And swaps out in it is the Swampert. So because our vaNNiii was debuffed and our Vigoroth wasn't going to be useful up against Drifbloom, we decided to swap into the Vigoroth, throw the Body Slam, get that first shield, and hope to get another Body Slam off before a Hydro Cannon come through. Fish though going straight for that HC and going to take out our Vigoroth. So our vaNNiii is going to come in, but I feel like it's doesn't really have quite as much energy as it needs to take out both Pokemon, and unfortunately, just a little bit slow on clicking the Ice Beam there. This Hydro Cannon going to come through and take us out, but that is GG's there. Now, I actually went back and researched, and Fish tends to change his leads a lot, so I was like, alright, go for the Vigoroth lead again, and we actually get the Zapdos this time, no Drifbloom. This is actually still kind of an iffy matchup for Vigoroth, I think. I think Vigoroth loses in the 1 shield and wins in the 2 shield, so we'll see how it plays out. Get the first shield off of Fish and shield up the charge move coming our way. It is a Drill Peck, which would start to add up. Zapdos is a really dangerous mon. I mean, best case scenario, we get it lined up against our Stunfisk. He swaps out and catches the Body Slam into the Drifbloom, so this is just going to waste our energy. We just farmed that for nothing, but it actually lets us swap into vaNNiii now. So vaNNiii going to come in. Vigoroth is not going to see any more of that Drifbloom, hopefully, and I don't think he's going to go for the same move twice, so I'm thinking that it's going to be an Icy Wind, and it was. Correctly called that one, and going for the Ice Beam straight away. We'll see if Fish decides to shield up this time. Probably thinks the same thing. I'm not going to do the same thing twice in a row. Actually lets the Ice Beam come through, which is actually pretty huge for us. At this point, I think like one more Bubble Beam would take out the Drifbloom. I'm hoping that this is an Icy Wind and it wouldn't take us out. It is a Shadow Ball though, and solo, and we overtap and don't get the Bubble Beam off. At this point, I was like, oh no, this is a disaster. And actually, King IV, who was jackcasting this battle live, on a live stream, he was like, at this point, it was game over. Like, I've lost this one. I swap into Stunfisk to catch the energy from that Zapdos into my Stunfisk. Zapdos can essentially do nothing to Stunfisk. All its charge moves are just... Stunfisk is just eating them up. Again, we're in this scenario where we have Stunfisk up against Ferrothorn with a little bit of energy. So we're going to be able to throw a lot of Mud Bombs here. And it's kind of a little bit better here because we don't need Vigoroth to farm up as much energy. So I'm still expecting it to play out the same way. Ferrothorn in the end is going to take out our Stunfisk. But what we don't want is for Ferrothorn to get 2 Power Whips onto our Vigoroth, so we kind of just want to make sure that doesn't happen. So letting this Power Whip come through again, same as that last game. This time it does take us out. In comes the Vigoroth and the Power Whip is ready to go. So we're going to let this one come through because we know that this is not going to take us out. And Zapdos' fast moves basically do nothing to us. So we're going for the full farm down and we just get there. Full farm down, in comes the Zapdos. We've still got a shield, so he really needs to get a charge move off to take us out. Sounds like Halo is hitting the roof at the moment. Get the shield with the Body Slam and get another Body Slam off, and at this point it is going to take out the Zapdos, and that is going to be GG's on game 2. Going to put me and Fish at 1-1, and this is the final battle to decide which team goes into the semi-final. So we get the Vigoroth into Swampert lead this time, again, knowing that Fish was not going to lead in that Drifbloom. This time we've swapped out, we've swapped in Wigglytuff into the squad, into the lineup, hoping that he doesn't see it coming, trying to hard counter that Drifbloom like really well. So we shield up the first Hydro Cannon from the Swampert, knowing that we are going to win the 1 shield and the 2 shield, I think, in this scenario. Throw the Body Slam, and it does get that first shield off of Fish as well. Go for another Body Slam, and this time it was the CMP tie, so I'm not thinking that it's going to be tanking this one onto a Drifbloom. Obviously, that didn't go too hot for him in the last one as well, because it meant that I was able to get Vigoroth out of the Drifbloom matchup. So we throw the Body Slam. Does get shielded, so Fish has no shields now, and swaps into the Zapdos. So at this point, I actually decided to throw the Body Slam, which is a bit of a debatable call. Like, it's fair enough, because I'm going to bring that Zapdos right down, and Stunfisk is going to be able to come in, eat up all of the energy from that Zapdos, and just be able to... I probably could have fast moved all the way down, but at some point I do get a little bit nervous and decide to throw a charge move. Just Thunder Shocking all the way, knowing that we're doing a lot of damage here. And we also know that Swampert is around, so I feel like it would be good to get Stunfisk as low as possible, because we know that we're not going to be able to do that much to Swampert. But we end up going for the Mud Bomb, and instant regret, like, okay, can we do no bubbles and leave it alive? No? Okay, that's cool. But this Swampert is definitely going to come back in now. Not gonna care too much about our charge moves. Mud Bomb actually does more than you would think. Like, it really surprised me at the time, funnily enough. So I throw this Mud Bomb, does do a nice little bit of damage onto that Swampert, and he swaps out into Ferrothorn. So at this point, we swap into Vigoroth, really trying to get this Body Slam off as soon as possible, because we know that, okay, well, Wigglytuff is gonna struggle a little bit against a full health Ferrothorn, so we want to weaken this Ferrothorn down as much as possible. And lucky for us, Fish actually goes for the full farm down, meaning that Ferrothorn had less health, which is great for us. We're going to bring in the Wigglytuff, hoping that he does not have Flash Cannon. If he has Flash Cannon, this is game over. End of run. All-Star Invitational's gone, but it is just a Power Whip. So fantastic there. Really risk it for the biscuit. Going to shield up here because we know that the next Power Whip would really be threatening. And shielding that up, we should be able to charm down the Ferrothorn. Actually going to swap out of the last second into Swampert, and we hard tap on the swap into Stunfisk there. Fish did look at that in case there was any need to rematch, but yeah, we were going to be able to swap into Stunfisk, and that Hydro Cannon would have to be thrown, or else we would take it out. In comes the Wigglytuff and takes out Swampert, and yeah, so there's Ferrothorn, and we have officially won the qualifying round, and we're going through to the semi-finals. Going into round 2 up against the Chair team now. And we're up against the one, the only PvPoke Kakuna Matata 42, absolute legendary man. I'll link to his Patreon in the description below because he seriously deserves so much support. Like without him, I would not be as good of a battler as I am today, which is, you know, I feel like I have to warn you though, I kind of rushed into these battles, like we did them straight at the start of the round and there wasn't a lot of time, not a lot of preparation time. That's just kind of how time zones worked, so kind of rushed into it. But we have the Vigoroth versus Vigoroth lead, which I was kind of a little bit I wasn't happy about it because I was kind of hoping that Vigoroth would be able to be used later on, and we had both Charizard and Mantine on a line of 3 to handle the Vigoroth later on, so I was kind of like, okay, we'll see how this plays out. We decide to just keep our Vigoroth around and let theirs go down, seeing as they didn't shield, and they swap into the Drifloon, so again, we're able to swap into Mantine, just as we did up against FishOnAHeater, but this time, Kakuna Matata does have that shield advantage, so this could be a little bit rougher for us. Lands the Shadow Ball again. I really need to start shielding these first charge moves against Drifloon. Man, going for the Ice Beam now. Because Kakuna Matata has 2 shields, he can afford to shield, but actually doesn't. So at this point, we're kind of like, okay, maybe we're back in it to win at this point. And then I was like, okay, I feel like if we let this Icy Wind come through, we could potentially get a Bubble Beam off. And this time we do get it off, unlike the FishOnAHeater battle where we overtapped and didn't get it off. But hey, we get it through this time, take out Drifloon, win Switch advantage, which is really great because we need something, because he still has that shield advantage and it's a little bit scary. In comes that Vigoroth, and at this point we're like, okay, we could bring in Vigoroth and try and counter down before he gets a charge move off maybe. And then I was like, okay, not going to happen. Throw the Body Slam. Mayday. So we do throw it and we get a shield out of PvPoke, which is kind of great. But then we make a massive mistake and swap into Charizard. What we were trying to do is get a quick move off to take out Vigoroth early before we could get the Body Slam off. But instead it just made us waste our shield. Ideally, we would have just let Vigoroth eat it, let Vigoroth go down, and then bring Charizard in to farm up that energy and keep a shield. Now we're in Charizard versus Mandibuzz, who I'm pretty sure wins the 1 shield, but it's not going to win the 0v1 shield, I'm pretty sure. So that foul play comes through, does so much damage, and he's still holding on to that shield. So I feel like that was actually a winnable game if we just stayed in with the Vigoroth and ate that Body Slam. But unfortunately, just not how it played out. Down it goes that, and then in comes the Vigoroth, still holding on to that shield. So at this point, we're like, okay, maybe we have a chance, but yeah, we don't have a chance. Mandibuzz is going to take us out, and it's going to be GG's on game 1 of the semi-finals. Going into game 2 now with Vigoroth up against Swampert. We've seen this lead, we like this lead, this is happy to see. So going to stay in, go for that just Body Slam spam as per usual. Again, I'm pretty sure that we win the 1 and the 2-0 in the 2 shield scenario, so pretty happy to just burn a shield, and Kakuna burns the first shield. So at this point I was like, okay, we could go either way on this, but we decided to burn the first shield, knowing that like we could have let it come through, but I felt like Vigoroth is kind of a commodity against this team. Vigoroth is just always powerful no matter what meta it's in, but we're going to let this Hydro Cannon come through now, because we want to match shields with PvPoke basically. We do not want to get in another scenario where he has the shield advantage, because that was really bad for us last game, so we want to avoid that at all costs. Eats the Body Slam and then swaps out into Vigoroth, so we're like, okay, we can still get this Body Slam off before we go down, and now I'm kind of thinking, okay, do we swap or do we let him get a bit more energy, take us out? I decided to swap, knowing that he's at least switch locked, and we didn't want to let Vigoroth get too much of an energy advantage, and Body Slam isn't going to do too much to Mantine anyway, so stay in. I think we're going to go straight for the Ice Beam, trying to do as much damage as possible. Another Body Slam coming through though, which, you know, it is just going to slowly chip us away. One more Body Slam would be KO time, so we do have to be a little bit careful now, and he was able to sneak in a counter, which is pretty unfortunate. Get the Ice Beam off, and it's definitely not taking out Vigoroth, and he is going to be able to get another Body Slam off before we get a charge move. Not going to shield though, because we're like, okay, shielding Mantine here would be pretty pointless. We'll just bring in something else to get a little bit of energy to maybe fight back a little harder later on. Decide to bring in that Wigglytuff, get 1 Charm of Energy, which isn't heaps, but hey, it is something. It can kind of help in that Ferrothorn matchup if Ferrothorn were to happen to appear. And speaking of the devil, there is a Ferrothorn, and we swapped into Vigoroth. I'm not really sure why I made that swap, but then PvPoke swaps in Swampert, and then I'm able to counter down that, but I wasn't able to get a Body Slam off onto the Ferrothorn. I feel like it would have been way smarter to try and catch a Power Whip onto the Vigoroth, but I think I was thinking that I needed to get as much damage as possible onto Ferrothorn because I knew that Wigglytuff was going to struggle. And instead, I just let Ferrothorn get some energy, which, you know, a bit of a questionable play, but we do get the Ice Beam off here. Unfortunately, not quite enough to take out Ferrothorn, and here comes that charge move. Gonna shield up here, and does he have back-to-back at this point? Does he have back-to-back? No, I didn't quite have back-to-back. 1 more Bullet Seed though, and this will seal the deal. And this is GG's. Kakuna Matata taking round 2, taking the semi-finals. But luckily, my teammates did kind of carry and were able to push us over the line to still end up winning the semi-finals despite my loss here. But we'll play the 3rd round here, and Vigoroth vs Drifloon again. Not what we wanted to see. Swapping into the Mantine straight away, and this time Kakuna staying in. Potentially going to Icy Wind. Oh no, goes for the Shadow Ball. I was thinking that he might Icy Wind debuff us down and then swap. But we're now up against Mandibuzz, and we're going to see how much this Ice Beam does to a Mandibuzz from a Mantine. How tanky is Mandibuzz? It is absolutely insane. I powered up a Mandibuzz specifically for this tournament. I didn't end up using it, I don't think. But yeah, it is seriously bulky, seriously insane. So glad I've powered it up for later on as well. I'm pretty sure it's good in one of the cups coming up as well. So stay tuned for that. But Mantine just going to keep bubbling away. Doesn't quite get to another Bubble Beam before Mandibuzz gets another charge move off, which is fine. Foul Play comes through, doesn't quite take us out. 1 more bubble, and we do get it this time. Again, we've learned from our mistakes up against FishOnAHeater, and this time we are not over-tapping, getting these Bubble Beams off perfectly, and he actually shields, which is fantastic for us. At this point, we're going to bring in the Wigglytuff, because Wigglytuff, 1, doesn't care about any of Mandibuzz's charge moves, and 2, is going to take it out pretty quick, get some nice energy going, which Wigglytuff, any energy advantage is like good to have, because it just takes so long to get to the charge moves. It really helps in those Ferrothorn matchups as well. Now, in comes the Swampert. At this point, we're like, okay, this is interesting. This is kind of decent. I'm hoping that he doesn't have Sludge Wave. You saw that I was trying to tap the Vigoroth there, really trying to get out, but unfortunately it just didn't go through. The Charm animation was still going. So I have to shield up the Hydro Cannon in case it was a Sludge Wave. Swoop into Vigoroth now, and now we're in Vigoroth vs Drifloon. I felt like it was worth it, because I feel like Wigglytuff has so much more stock in these battles, and Vigoroth is kind of like, okay, it would be good to have up against Swampert, but that's kind of it. So we're like, hey, swap in Vigoroth, get a little bit of energy, and throw as many Body Slams onto Drifloon as possible. Ideally, Wigglytuff will be able to come in, get rid of Drifloon before an Icy Wind debuff comes through, and then take out the Swampert. So get the Body Slam off. Into the yellow now. These Body Slams are taking a while, but hey, it is what it is. You can put this video on ×2 if you'd like and hear me speak on super speed mode. I actually watch YouTube on ×2. Fun fact. Trivia fact. But yeah, Body Slams, just Body Slamming away. The Icy Winds are just making it do less and less. Bring in the Wigglytuff and throw the Ice Beam straight away. Really trying to force that last shield from PvPoke, or force him to not be able to debuff us. Decides to shield and then swap into Swampert, which is an interesting play. I guess really thinking he was going to get a charge move off, but unfortunately just was not happening there. And then, yeah, here comes the Icy Wind. Doesn't quite take us out. And I think PvPoke was actually telling me after the battle that he would have had the Hydro Cannon ready, but he was trying to go for the Earthquake, got a little bit too greedy, and we were able to take that one out in the end. So GG's to PvPoke, able to go 2-1, and we are through to the Grand Finals. Into the Grand Finals up against the 7 Wonders. These are the 2 top teams that have slain all of the other competition. So many top battlers in these teams, it is absolutely insane. And I'm up against vaNNiii, the number 4 in the entire world on the Silph leaderboards. This is some serious competition, but my team actually looks really good against his. Now you notice that I have actually made one change to my team, and I've swapped Mantine for Articuno at this point, because we were allowed to change teams between rounds, but I didn't want to between rounds 1 and 2. But my Articuno had a really good matchups up against his team. And my Wigglytuff had similarly, like, not as good as Articuno, but really good matchups up against vaNNiii. So I just needed things to go well, and I should have been able to win these battles. So let's jump into it. Let's see how we did up against the number 4 in the world. Let's see if there's any skill behind that number 4 in the world claim. Now we've got Articuno up against Stunfisk in the lead, which Articuno wins as soon as we burn a single shield. As soon as you burn a shield, we'll be able to win every even shield matchup. So they are going to get the charge move off first before we get to an Icy Wind. So we shield up first, and then we're going to go for that Icy Wind. Debuff the damage coming in from that Stunfisk, and do a fair bit of damage as well if it goes through. And bada bing bada does go through, so doing heaps of damage to that Stunfisk straight off the bat. And this charge move is not going to take us out, but I'm kind of going, okay, but Articuno has really good matchups, should I shield? And I do decide to not shield. And they end up swapping into Vigoroth, so I'm like, okay, I can get an Icy Wind off, and then I would actually be able to bring in my Vigoroth, and we can kind of just duke it out, and I should be able to win that matchup. So we swap in Vigoroth. We'll see why this is actually a bit of a misplay on my part. See if you can kind of figure out why that might be when looking at the teams yourself. But yeah, Body Slam comes through. Not going to do as much damage as my body Slams because he has been attack debuffed by my Icy Wind. So throw a Body Slam, goes through, and at this point we're hoping we can counter down. Unfortunately, not going to happen. So at this point we're like, okay, let Vigoroth go. We can bring in Articuno, get some energy, or bring in Wigglytuff and get some energy. Both cases are kind of pretty decent. So yeah, decide to bring in the Wigglytuff because Articuno is a little bit frail. So like, maybe not the one to bring in. In comes that Ferrothorn, and now I'm going, oh man, I really should have brought in Wigglytuff up against that Vigoroth because I needed Vigoroth for the Ferrothorn matchup. So now I'm going, oh no, have I thrown this battle? Oh no. We'll let the first Power Whip come through, and he catches the Ice Beam onto the Stunfisk. No! Oh man, because they basically would have, they wouldn't have been forced to burn the shield, but it would have been recommended that they burn the shield on that Ice Beam, and then we would have had a much better time up against this team. This Icy Wind getting off now, and at this point, like, he still has that shield in tow, so it could have been out of play. That Ferrothorn could be fairly low at this point, and but unfortunately, that is just not how it played out. Unfortunately, I really just miss-swapped. I should have brought in that Wigglytuff up against Vigoroth instead of the Vigoroth. I wasn't thinking, I was in the moment, too much pressure, and we have ended up losing this first battle up against vaNNiii. But we're like, hey, we have these good matchups, we just need to play a little bit tighter, and we should be able to win this out. So I go in again, Articuno versus Vigoroth this time. This time, like, Vigoroth is still a bit of an iffy Pokemon, like, it's a scary Pokemon, no matter what. But Articuno is going to be able to take it out in the 1 and 2 shield scenario. So throw the Icy Wind, and after a little bit of lag, I do get it through eventually. Debuff the Body Slams coming through from the Vigoroth, and we shield the first one because we don't want to mess with things. We know that as long as we burn even shields that we will win this, so we didn't want to risk a single thing. At this point, Vigoroth's throwing another Body Slam, but we let it come through. He hasn't burned any shields yet, and we do not want to let the number 4 in the world get a 2-0 shield advantage on us, because then we are guaranteed toast. So not a chance. Throw another Icy Wind, and we finally get the shield off of vaNNiii. And at this point, we're kind of forced to shield if we want to keep our Swish advantage and keep our Articuno around. So we shield up, and then hoping that we can farm all the way down, and then get an Icy Wind off to whatever's in the back. Not quite an Icy Wind, but we should be able to get there. In comes the Ferrothorn. At this point, we're going, oh, thank you. Finally, we can get this Icy Wind off, bring in Vigoroth, and put it up against where it's supposed to be. And then maybe Wigglytuff can get, against a good matchup as well later on. You have to be a little bit wary of that one shield advantage that vaNNii's holding on to, and then also Ferrothorn has a little bit of energy, so that's a little bit scary as well. Gets that first Power Whip off, not doing heaps of damage. We did get that Icy Wind off. Swapping into the Drifloon now, and now we're going, okay, this is so sick. We have Wigglytuff specifically here to hard counter that Drifloon, but we are in that 1-0 shield scenario, and that could be a little bit rough for us. So we're farming up. At this point, we're like, I'm kind of half remembering the Sims. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure that Wigglytuff with only Charm is able to beat down Drifloon. So I'm like, okay, I think I should be able to win this. And I'm like, what? I can't do this. And now an Icy Wind's going to take me out. I was thinking of the 1-1 shield scenario instead of the 1-0. Yeah, Wigglytuff does lose that. So if I threw the Ice Beam, I would have either taken out Drifloon or forced that last shield off of vaNNiii. And then Ferrothorn would have been just ready to go to take out that Ferrothorn. And unfortunately, it just didn't happen. So vaNNiii taking me out in the grand finals. But we are going to this game 3 here. Articuno versus Vigoroth. Again, playing this out fairly similarly. Just want to take out this Vigoroth. And yeah, just try and do as much as possible. As long as we don't let him sneak in too many counters here and there, we should be fine. But throw that first Icy Wind. And now we're thinking, okay, do we play it any better, or did we just make a mistake that we can clean up on? And I was like, alright, I probably just made a mistake. we can probably just play a little bit tighter again. I know that's what I said after the first game, but I'm like, all right, tighten up a little bit more and we should be good to go. At this point, it obviously doesn't count towards like any sort of getting the trophy at the end or whatever, but yeah, we don't hit all the bubbles, but it ends up not actually mattering because Vigoroth shields. So it's like, okay, that's fine. I was going to be a little bit cut if it like came into it, but it wasn't going to anyway, because an Icy Wind would have taken out Vigoroth at that range. Let the Body Slam come through, and again, we're at that 1-0 shield disadvantage. I'm like, how do I keep getting myself into this mess? But in comes that Ferrothorn again, and this time, we're going different. We're throwing the Hurricane. Going for a little bit of surprise. This will do a fair bit of damage to that Ferrothorn. Boom! Taking out over 2/3 of its health. Bullet Seed slowly taking us down, and now we're like, okay, surely there's a Drifloon in the back. Bring in Ferrothorn. Bring in Vigoroth. Ferrothorn doesn't have too much health, so we should be able to counter down. In comes that Swampert though, and I was like, oh, that's not a Drifloon. Hopefully it doesn't have a Sludge Wave. We'll find out soon enough. So we charm it down into the yellow. Please don't be a Sludge Wave, because then we are absolutely game over, but it is a Hydro Cannon, so like, okay, that's alright. He's definitely going to be able to get another Hydro Cannon off pretty quick smart, and there it was, definitely quick smart. Going to take out the Wigglytuff at this point, and Vigoroth is going to come in. We're going to try and counter down the Swampert. At this point, we're like, okay, yeah. There's no chance that we can get to one, a Body Slam to take out the shield, and then another one to take out Swampert, or be able to counter down or anything. So that is GG's on the entire Silph Invitationals. We did end up losing the finals, but we lost it as a team. It wasn't like my matchup was the deciding matchup that lost it all. Otherwise, I would be quite cut at myself. But luckily, that was not the case. So I'm seriously proud of this team, though. We ended up coming second, which is a huge accomplishment up against an absolutely stacked competition. Like, it was the insane amount of competition that was in here. So thank you to my entire team. Thank you for the battles as well. I did so many scrims against so many of you, and I'm really appreciative of that. I also want to say some thank yous to Majin Sage and Evo Stevo as well, because I did some battles up against them in the field meta, and they seriously helped out as well. And I want to say a massive congrats to the 7 Wonders for taking out the entire All-Star Invitationals. Memphis Flow MD, one of the other Continental Champions. Insane. Houseduck93, Ricky 1990, Ali Lucky, Dr. Trotter, another one of the Aussie Twitch amigos, vaNNiii and Parsable. Massive congrats to you guys, because some serious action going on in this battle, some seriously hype. By the way, if you want to watch any of the full entire coverage, you can watch every single one of the battles. I'm going to link to all of these live stream coverage in the description below. So my first round was shoutcasted by My PvP Academia and King IV. My PvP Academia and Team Rocket Academy both then shoutcasted some of the other qualifying round battles, and then Ghost Stadium shoutcasted both the semi-finals and the final. So again, I will link to all of that coverage in the description below, so you can watch every single battle from these amazing people. And thank you, Silph, for having me along, because I had an absolute blast, and I'm seriously so glad that this was my team. Mel Good does tell me that it was just chance that I ended up on the same team as Speedy as Chief, but we know that's not true, Mel. But seriously, thanks to all of the other All-Stars who made this event what it is, an absolute blast of a time. Thank you to Silph for organising it and for running it. Thanks to like Tris Chandler for running our Squirtle Squad team lobby, just making sure things were running smooth. Thanks to Zooey's, Melgood, Mogan, Lol, just the entire Silph team for being fantastic people, and I hope that we can do something like this in the future. Obviously, Factions is actually coming in February, so if there is any information about that at all, you can find it in the pinned comment below. I'll link to any sort of thing that comes up about that, because it is going to be starting in February, so it actually may have been revealed by the time that this video goes up. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one. Thank you to all of my patrons and supporters over on Twitch. I had it right the first time, for being a bunch of absolutely awesome people. And yeah, thanks for watching. So again, you can watch that announcement video about Silph Factions to learn all the information that has been released so far as I'm recording this. And then you can also watch the video down there, because I'm going to keep linking to that Speedy's Chief shoutcast video, because I like Speedy's Chief. Thanks, Team Captain.
Squirtle, Squirtle.